End of the road for Moscow's only Crimea Lifeline. Explosions, confusion, and disruption are spreading. A critical connection is under severe pressure. Russia's control over Crimea is being questioned. Is this temporary or a turning point in the war? What really happened, and why does it matter now? Stay with us, because this changes everything. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we discuss one of the most serious developments in the Ukraine-Russia conflict. It involves Crimea, a region at the center of tensions since 2014. Recent reports suggest Moscow is struggling to maintain reliable access to the peninsula. K routes are under repeated pressure from Ukrainian operations. This is not just about one bridge or road, it is about logistics, morale, and strategic control. Crimea relies heavily on connections to Russia for fuel, food, military supplies, and civilian movement. Even short disruptions have immediate consequences. Russian authorities claim the situation is under control. However, emergency repairs, traffic restrictions, and heightened security indicate a more complicated reality. Modern warfare is increasingly about supply chains. A single lifeline carries enormous strategic weight. Ukraine focuses on high-value targets instead of broad ground assaults. Verified footage shows delays, inspections, and damage along key routes. Official statements attempt to project calm, but the psychological effect is undeniable. Questions are growing about how secure Crimea truly is. This moment matters because it could influence the next phase of the conflict. Territorial control is important, but sustaining operations is equally critical. The situation sets the stage for understanding Russia's strategic challenge. Control of Crimea is deeply linked to reliable access. The coming days will reveal more about the operational and symbolic significance. Pressure on logistics could shift military planning. Even small disruptions accumulate into major challenges. Maintaining the lifeline is a test of resilience and planning. The psychological dimension adds to the material challenges. Russia must manage both perception and reality simultaneously. Observers worldwide are watching closely to see how this unfolds. Every delay or disruption becomes a message to both civilians and the international community. The stakes are exceptionally high. Understanding this context is critical to interpreting Crimea's future role. Crimea's connection to Russia is not just about geography. Since annexation, Moscow invested heavily in infrastructure. The Kerch Bridge became a symbol of permanence and control. Land corridors and ferry routes supplement the bridge, but have limited capacity. These connections allow heavy military equipment, fuel, and goods to flow into the peninsula. When any link is threatened, sustaining troops becomes difficult. Recent strikes and sabotage claims targeted these routes, causing delays and rerouting. Military logistics depend on predictability. Crimea is not self-sufficient, it relies on water, energy, and ammunition imports. When one route is disrupted, pressure shifts to the others, creating bottlenecks. Ukraine's strategy stretches Russian defenses by forcing them to guard long, vulnerable lines. This creates a dilemma: protect supply routes or reinforce front lines. Both options carry significant risk. The connection issue shapes battlefield decisions and political messaging. Russia emphasizes resilience, while Ukraine emphasizes reach. Facts often lie between these statements, but strategic impact remains. Even temporary disruptions affect commercial traffic, civilian life, and military operations. Redundancy is limited, and constructing alternatives under fire is extremely difficult. Each disruption has a compounding effect. This is why Crimea's only lifeline phrase is significant. Military supply chains thrive on routine. Breaking routine introduces unpredictability. Commanders may stockpile supplies, but storage capacity is limited. Traffic slows, inspections increase, and costs rise. Logistics become a bottleneck that constrains operational flexibility. Repeated disruptions erode confidence and reliability. Understanding these dynamics explains why Crimea is strategically sensitive. It is not just a bridge, it is a symbol, a lifeline, and a military priority. Disruption here resonates far beyond the peninsula itself. The psychological impact of these disruptions is equally important. Wars are not fought only with weapons. Perception matters. Reports of delays, smoke, and halted traffic affect soldiers, civilians, and international observers. Russian media presents Crimea as secure and permanent. Images of damage challenge this narrative, even if repairs are fast. For Ukrainian supporters, each successful strike reinforces morale. International confidence in Ukrainian operations also rises. Residents of Crimea face uncertainty, travel becomes stressful, and prices fluctuate. Rumors often spread faster than official updates. Psychological pressure forces authorities to allocate resources to security, communication, and reassurance. Constant alert drains attention from frontline planning. Global media amplifies perception, turning small disruptions into symbolic victories. Both sides frame events carefully. Russia highlights rapid repair and resilience. Ukraine emphasizes reach and persistence. Truth lies somewhere between these narratives. But the strategic impact is clear. A lifeline perceived as vulnerable changes military calculations. Insurance costs rise, commercial traffic hesitates, and planning becomes constrained. Small tactical events accumulate into broader effects over time. Repeated disruptions highlight vulnerabilities and test resilience. Perception and reality intertwine in shaping outcomes. The importance of psychological pressure cannot be overstated. It affects morale, strategy, and international perception. Even temporary disruptions have outsized influence. Understanding this aspect is crucial for analyzing Crimea's ongoing role. Sustained pressure is not about immediate collapse, but incremental strain over time. Commanders, civilians, and analysts all respond to signals as much as facts. The symbolic power of a lifeline adds weight to every operational decision. From a military perspective, targeting connections is logical. Direct assaults on fortified positions are costly and risky. Disrupting support systems is often more effective. Bridges, rail lines, fuel depots, and command nodes become priority targets. Crimea's geography makes it extremely sensitive to such disruption. The peninsula is surrounded by water, with few access points. Ukraine's long-range capabilities, drones, and intelligence coordination allow strikes without major troop movements. This reduces risk while maintaining pressure. Russia deploys air defenses, patrols, and counter-sabotage units along critical routes. Defending infrastructure over hundreds of kilometers requires manpower, reducing frontline strength. Weather and seasonal changes add further complications. Winter hinders repair work and limits mobility. Even temporary disruptions have lasting effects on supply chains. Routine is essential in military logistics. Unpredictability causes delays and bottlenecks. Commanders stockpile supplies to mitigate risk, but storage capacity and flexibility are limited. Partial disruptions generate disproportionate attention and pressure. They strike at the system rather than the forces themselves. Momentum slows and operational planning becomes more difficult. Repeated pressure erodes confidence and exposes weaknesses. The only lifeline becomes a strategic vulnerability. Defensive measures are necessary, but signal concern to observers. Every small attack or disruption shapes both perception and planning. The cumulative effect may ultimately influence the conflict's trajectory. Strategic adaptation is required on multiple levels. Russia must balance repair, defense, and morale simultaneously. Crimea's lifeline is a decisive factor in broader operations. This demonstrates how infrastructure can dictate the flow of modern warfare. International and diplomatic reactions are crucial. Allies observe developments closely to assess capability and resolve. Successful Ukrainian strikes show effective use of supplied systems. Russia faces scrutiny from partners and critics alike. Sanctions have already limited access to technology and materials. Rapid, large-scale repairs are increasingly difficult. Diplomatic messaging is a balancing act. Downplaying problems risks credibility. Acknowledging them may show weakness. Markets respond cautiously. Shipping insurers adjust risk assessments. Energy and tourism are subtly affected. The Crimea connection issue spans military, civilian, and global spheres. Repeated pressure exposes vulnerabilities and tests resilience. This cycle is likely to continue, with attacks, repairs, and reassurance alternating. Cumulative effects often outweigh individual incidents. Small disruptions can have far-reaching consequences. Observers track patterns rather than isolated events. Frequency, repair times, and defensive measures provide insight. This analysis helps viewers understand the broader conflict context. Crimea becomes a test case for modern hybrid warfare, blending physical pressure, psychological effects, and information control. The intersection of military, political, and civilian dynamics is clear. Strategic adaptation and decision-making are constantly challenged. Understanding these dynamics allows better insight into the conflict's direction. The peninsula is more than territory. It is a symbol, a hub, and a stress point. Future operations will continue to be shaped by the reliability of these connections. For Russia and Ukraine, controlling or disrupting this lifeline has enduring significance. Attention to detail in supply and perception will remain decisive. The ongoing tension highlights both vulnerability and resilience. Looking ahead, pressure on Crimea's connections is unlikely to disappear. Military analysts believe Ukraine will continue focusing on asymmetric tactics. Drones, sabotage, and precision strikes remain cost-effective. Each incident forces Russia to react defensively rather than shape events. This reactive posture can be strategically draining. Crimea's importance amplifies the effect because it serves as a logistical hub. Instability there affects planning in southern Ukraine and beyond. Maintaining uninterrupted access becomes a priority that competes with other needs. No state has infinite resources, attention, or time. Alternative routes require investment, security, and repair under pressure. Constructing redundancy in active conflict is extremely difficult. Each disruption, even partial, accumulates strain. Defensive measures include air defenses, patrols, and electronic warfare. These actions preserve routes but also signal concern to observers. Perceived vulnerability encourages further pressure. Sustained disruption may become decisive over time. It tests Russian planning, logistics, and morale. Ukraine demonstrates reach and persistence. Russia demonstrates repair and resilience. This cycle shapes the next phase of the conflict. Cumulative pressure is often more decisive than a single strike. Crimea's lifeline is central to operational planning and political messaging. Observers and analysts track patterns of disruption carefully. Each disruption signals the challenges of maintaining control. Supply, perception, and persistence are key elements. The strategic consequences go beyond immediate damage. Every delay or diversion has ripple effects. Understanding these dynamics helps explain Russia's operational decisions. Crimea remains a test case in modern hybrid warfare. Civilians living in Crimea experience daily uncertainty. Authorities emphasize stability, but reality differs. Security checks increase. Travel faces delays. Goods fluctuate in availability. Even minor disruptions cause fuel and product price spikes. Tourism suffers as visitors perceive risk. Families face difficulty planning visits to the mainland. Businesses struggle to predict supply schedules. Information spreads faster than official updates. Rumors intensify anxiety. This civilian dimension amplifies strategic effects. Ukraine's tactics exploit both physical and psychological pressure. The aim is disruption rather than mass casualties. International law and messaging complicate the picture. Infrastructure serving military logistics occupies a gray zone. Each narrative is contested globally. Both sides frame events as either legitimate military action or reckless endangerment. The narrative contest shapes perception and global opinion. Confident allies see results from effective strikes. Critics highlight vulnerability and gaps in defense. Civilian experience affects trust in official messaging. Perception of control is as critical as reality. Repeated pressure undermines confidence. Even if physical damage is repaired, social networks amplify the psychological effect. The combination of civilian impact, military pressure, and information control defines modern conflict. Crimea exemplifies this challenge, linking logistics to perception. Understanding this dynamic is essential for interpreting ongoing developments. Strategic outcomes depend on both tangible and intangible effects. History shows that control of supply lines can determine conflict outcomes. Crimea's situation reflects these lessons. Geography can amplify strength, but also vulnerability. A peninsula offers natural defenses but limits access points. Limited access points become strategic chokeholds. The end of the road phrase resonates because it reflects this reality. Historical precedent shows supply challenges rarely produce instant collapse. They create gradual shifts, forcing adaptation and escalation. Russia may harden routes, diversify transport, or intensify defenses. Ukraine may continue probing, exploiting weaknesses and gaps. Each move prompts a counter-move, a dynamic chess match. Timing and planning are as important as force. External actors monitor closely, drawing conclusions about endurance and capability. These conclusions affect aid, sanctions, and diplomatic posture. Even minor tactical outcomes influence strategic narratives. The flow of events often matters more than individual strikes. Small disruptions reveal systemic vulnerabilities. Cumulative stress test decision-making and resource allocation. Adaptation is constant and critical. Understanding the patterns is more informative than fixating on single incidents. The true question is how long supply chains can withstand repeated pressure. Operational flexibility diminishes with every disruption. Strategic choices eventually emerge from sustained strain. Perception, logistics, and resilience interact continuously. This historical lens provides insight into modern conflicts. Crimea is both a symbol and a strategic challenge. Supply lines are decisive in shaping operational and political outcomes. Media coverage heavily influences understanding of Crimea's situation. Satellite images, videos, and official statements form narratives. Algorithms amplify dramatic framing. Phrases like "lifeline severed" or "under the road" spread widely. Audiences must distinguish exaggeration from reality. Patterns are more important than isolated events. Frequency of disruptions, repair timelines, and defensive measures provide insight. Balanced analysis acknowledges uncertainty while explaining implications. Overstating certainty misleads viewers. Ignoring significance obscures trends. Analysts recommend focusing on cumulative effects rather than single incidents. Crimea's connection issue exemplifies hybrid warfare challenges. It is neither irrelevant nor conclusively decisive. However, its strategic and symbolic weight is significant. Governments react strongly to both real and perceived threats. The intersection of military, civilian, and global perception shapes decisions. Information becomes a parallel front where perception often equals influence. Media, analysts, and social platforms shape global interpretation. Attention to narrative affects morale, investment, and policy. Understanding perception is crucial for interpreting operational decisions. Even temporary disruptions can have cascading effects on planning. Symbolism, logistics, and psychological impact intertwine. Success is measured in confidence, belief, and sustained attention. Crimea is a test case for modern strategic operations. Analyzing trends over time provides more clarity than reacting to single events. Observers should watch patterns of disruption and response carefully. Small events may indicate larger strategic adjustments ahead. As we conclude, one fact is clear: Crimea's connection is both symbolic and practical. Repeated pressure exposes vulnerabilities, while repair and resilience demonstrate capacity. Neither side has achieved a definitive outcome yet. However, the trajectory matters. Sustained disruption challenges assumptions and forces adaptation. Ukraine shows reach and intent. Russia shows repair and control. The balance between these actions shapes the coming phase. Signals to watch include militarization of routes, alternative logistics, and civilian impact. Travel patterns, prices, and official statements are key indicators. The end of the road framing works because it asks a question. Answers remain unfolding, shaped by decisions under pressure. Crimea remains central in military, diplomatic, and psychological calculations. Geography ensures access is both strength and vulnerability. Understanding this dynamic clarifies ongoing developments. Strategic decisions are influenced by supply reliability, perception, and operational strain. Modern conflict is shaped as much by these factors as by firepower. Trends, not headlines, reveal long-term consequences. Commanders, civilians, and analysts all respond to signals. Cumulative pressure may alter strategic priorities before outright collapse. Crimea's lifeline will continue to test both resilience and adaptation. Observing patterns provides insight into future operational choices. Every disruption has implications beyond immediate geography. Supply, perception, and persistence determine outcomes. Understanding this prepares observers for subsequent phases of conflict. Analysis of these factors highlights the complex nature of modern warfare. Crimea will remain central as a symbol, hub, and stress point. Attention to logistics and perception is essential for strategic clarity. If you found this breakdown helpful, like the video. Subscribe for clear, fact-based analysis of ongoing conflicts. Share this with others who want context, not hype. Comment below with your thoughts on Crimea's future. Your support helps the channel grow and remain independent.